Welcome to the show. Welcome to a brand new week. It's Christmas week. Yay! Santa Claus is getting ready to come to town, and the elves are getting their stuff done. We're here to bring you a little sports for the next 2 days. Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers with you today. It'll be a Festivus show tomorrow, as promised. We've been teasing the old Festivus show, and as Joe Allen says, Happy Festivus Eve. That's right. Frank Costanza's favorite holiday is coming up tomorrow. Some would say made-up holiday is coming tomorrow. But we are looking forward to it as we air some sports grievances on tomorrow's show. You might have to submit yours in advance, Trevor, so that you can make sure and get all your grievances in before tomorrow.
Deal. I got a list, so I'll make sure I put that in.
The list keeps getting longer at this point, the way things go. As I was putting the show together this morning, this was originally going to be just kind of some things that happened, because there were some definite notable things that happened over the weekend with notable football, from Aamil Wagner declaring for the NFL draft, and got some guys, lower depth type guys entering the transfer portal, and we'll try to touch on some of that if we can, if we have time in this hour, and the stuff going on with Marcus Freeman, the continued smoke coming out of New York City, or the Meadowlands, I guess, anyway, New Jersey, where the Giants headquarters is, with him in the NFL. And we will talk about that in the 6 o'clock hour. But the big news came today. Now, I don't know exactly what order this happened in. But the order that I saw it in was Notre Dame announces that they're going to play BYU in a home-and-home series, 2026 and 2027. It's like, oh, that's cool. BYU, after all this talk, BYU is going to be on the schedule. And then the next thing I know, like within maybe 45 minutes or so, the bells start ringing again. And it's, oh, by the way, BYU is replacing USC on the schedule, because Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports was the first to report that after months of uncertainty between Notre Dame and USC, would this series continue? The series that began in 1926 when Knute Rockne took the boys to Southern California, jumped on the trains, and barnstormed to the West. The series is over. It's done, at least for now. There's a chance maybe that something happens in the future, but scheduling complications and college football playoff implications were the root of the series demise, according to Dellinger. And now that comes from the Southern Cal side. Let's not, make any mistake about this. Like, this all comes from the Southern Cal side with this series coming to an end. The two programs were apparently, according to Dellinger, on the verge of finalizing a 2-year extension of this contract. And we had heard, that there might be, like, even when the series or when the Notre Dame-USC game was taking place in South Bend, that like something could be on the near horizon, but it never happened. And USC had agreed to host Notre Dame next season in the traditional Thanksgiving weekend date, and then Notre Dame would host again in 2027. But USC officials decided that the game date was not ideal, and here's the key: considering past decisions from the College Football Playoff Committee in punishing schools for losses, especially those late in the season. So Southern Cal wanted to move the game to week 0 next year because, of course, Notre Dame is opening the season at Lambeau Field against Wisconsin in week 1. So, Trevor, I will let you have your opportunity. You hear that stuff. What do you think about all this?
Nah, I think it's a bunch of garbage. I mean, look, I actually went back and checked the timestamps. Ross Dellinger put out that story at 11:53 a.m., and Notre Dame said that they were going to play a home-and-home series with BYU at 11:54.
Wow.
Yeah.
So obviously everyone knew like what was going on in terms of when things are going to, when the report was going to come out, and when things like Notre Dame was like just waiting, it sounds like, for Dellinger to hit publish, and then boom, Notre Dame
100%.
Notre Dame announces the BYU series.
100%. Here's the really upsetting thing about this one, and you kind of have to look at it through two different lenses. One, this is a sad day for college football.
It absolutely is.
This is one of the most historic rivalries in the country, and for whatever reason, people were okay with the Notre Dame-USC rivalry going away. But God forbid somebody talks about Ohio State, Michigan going away, or, the Iron Bowl going away.
Right.
I mean, that's just something that's really upsetting. This is one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports. And honestly, it's like I said, it's a rough day for being a sports fan. Now, from the Notre Dame lens, good for Notre Dame. Honestly, because USC can't dictate all the terms of this and ask you to, move.
Notre Dame bent over backwards to try to keep this series going.
Exactly.
Literally, like Pete Bavacqua and everyone in the athletic department, was like, they were playing Twister, to make this thing happen with USC, to keep this series alive. Notre Dame very much wanted to keep this series alive. And there was, remember, I mean, we can go back to October and people from the USC side specifically, and, some others saying, well, Notre Dame benefits more from having Notre Dame Notre Dame benefits more from having USC on the schedule. Like, as I said at the time, the winner of that game, the Notre Dame-USC game this season, was going to stay alive for a college football playoff berth. And if USC had beaten Notre Dame, they stood to benefit greatly, because they probably would have been in Notre Dame's situation, hovering around the top 10 or 12 had they beaten Notre Dame. They very much would, because they still found themselves in playoff contention up until, they lost to Oregon. So, like, to say that only Notre Dame benefits from this is just a bunch of garbage. It's all about, I think, the mentality that you have. Do you actually think you've got a chance to win this game, or don't you? Because it just feels like a loser's mentality that Southern Cal has in all this, Trevor.
No, it absolutely does. I mean, look, you read it off in the quote right here. Quote, but USC officials decided that the game date was not ideal considering past decisions from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee in punishing schools for losses, especially those late in the season. That tells me one of two things. One, USC, including their athletic director and their head coach, are not confident in their abilities to win this football game. That's what that tells me. And I understand it. They've played 15 times since 2010. Notre Dame's won 11 of them. Notre Dame has won 7 of the last 8 games and 3 straight. And the only win coming in that time was when you had a Heisman winning quarterback and a Biletnikoff winner in 2021 transferring to your school, talking about Jordan Addison. So, yeah, I mean, right. I understand from their end why they don't want to, but don't paint this picture like it's about the playoffs. USC making this move is not them wanting to compete for a national championship. They just want an invite to the dance. That's all they want.
Yeah.
Because if you truly value,
they want to dump the scale.
Yeah. Like if you truly valued building a championship caliber team, you would want to play other championship caliber teams. And USC doesn't want to do that.
They want to dumb their schedule down, just like Indiana has dumbed their schedule down. Like, look at what USC did. Petros Papadakis, a former USC captain and he's on Fox Sports. He also hosts a radio show in Southern California. He has been one of the most vocal critics of Jen Cohn and Lincoln Riley and the USC administration and everyone at USC for wanting to cancel this series. And I'll be curious to see within the next day or so what Petros has to say about this. I'm sure we'll see some clips coming up on social media. He's going to fire off on this again. We've played some of his comments over the last several months, going back to the summer and earlier this season when this game was coming up as well. But it would be beneficial for USC to continue to have a quality opponent like Notre Dame on their schedule. Because even if say you lose to Notre Dame, if you take care of business in 95% of the rest of your schedule, in other words, if you only lose one other game on your schedule and you lose to Notre Dame, that's 2 losses right there. Now, there are no guarantees that you're going to be in the playoff in that situation if you take 2 losses, which Notre Dame obviously found out this year. But at a very minimum, you are going to be sitting in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range. You're going to be in the conversation if you're USC, and there are still benefits whether you win or lose that game against a quality opponent. See Notre Dame with the 2 quality opponents that they played at the beginning of the schedule. And even though they lost those 2 games, they won the rest of their games. And even though they got snubbed, and we all feel like they were snubbed and had the rug pulled out from underneath them, they were still in the conversation late in the season. And this whole, the committee punishing schools for losses, late in the season? Like, when did that happen? I'd like to know what specifically they're talking about, because look at Alabama. They lost to Oklahoma at home on November 15th. What was the punishment for Alabama there? Like, I don't know what it is. And I realize USC is not in the SEC, but they're in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten and the SEC obviously run this whole show when you look at how many, teams each of those conferences had in there. And the fact that, we've talked about this before, that these Big Ten teams, and a lot of people just perceptually talk about Big Ten schedules like they are these power packed, like you're playing week in and week out. Like, look at the schedules that these Big Ten teams had, and like the contenders, Indiana being a prime example. They didn't play anybody in non-conference. Obviously, they played an FCS and 2 lower level group of 5s, and their schedule basically came down to Penn State and Oregon. And Penn State obviously didn't end up being what anyone thought they were going to be. They didn't even have to play Michigan this year. Now they'll get them next year, but that these conference schedules, especially in the Big Ten, it's like you're going to get probably 2 pretty good teams a year, and that's it. And that's very comparable to Notre Dame's schedule. And, again, like you flip it back to USC, that's it. Like, I don't understand, like, where this penalty for a late season loss came from. I mean, look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame took its losses at the beginning of the season. They didn't lose late. Now, obviously, had they lost late because they lost those 2 games, they would have been penalized. But if they had split those 2 games at the beginning of the season and then lost, if they had somebody better, obviously, later in the season and lost a game like that, I don't think it would have eliminated them, from consideration. But I just don't see where this is coming from. This whole the committee penalizes late season losses. I don't understand where that's coming from the USC side.
Well, I don't either. And let's talk about the flip side of the coin. The committee will also reward you for picking up a big win in the month of November. Again, this goes back to USC is not confident in their abilities to beat Notre Dame. So what are they doing? They're running from it because they're like, well, that's just going to be a loss on our resume. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I mean, imagine if Notre Dame likely with their schedule next season will be a top 10 team going into that November game, final week of the season. If USC handles business with their schedule, we're talking about a potential ranked matchup with playoff implications on the line. If USC is able to pick up that win, that could vault them into playoff conversation.
Right.
But they're only focused on the loss. Why? Because they've lost 7 of the last 8 and 11 of the last 15 and 3 straight. That's
exactly. And that's, again, like we've talked, again, like because this has been such a topic basically for the last 2 years now since it came up, and there's been so much uncertainty. We've talked a lot about it. Yet USMA 87 says a late loss only hurts you if you already have 2 losses. And so, I don't know if that's what they're referring to because of the fact that they lost to Oregon later in the season and they already had 2 losses. So yeah, in that case, it does hurt you, but you might not want to lose to Illinois, I guess, in that, instance. Maybe that helps you a little bit. Again, if you take care of business and you even lose to Notre Dame and you lose to Oregon and your USC, like they were creeping back into the playoff picture as it was with 2 losses. They would be in the playoff picture with losses to Oregon and Notre Dame if they won out the rest of their games. But I agree with what you're saying. I think that they want to dumb their schedule down as much as possible, play nobody in the non-conference because, because of the myth of the tough Big Ten schedule, and then take their chances and just try to get into the playoff. Because I think, like with the Notre Dame thing, because like they're talking about the 2 sides are hopeful they can resume this thing in 2030. I think that USC is hoping that if they do something 5 years from now, well, maybe Marcus Freeman will be gone, and then their roster will be in a place where they actually have a chance to come in and beat Notre Dame because, they obviously had the number 1 recruiting class this year, and they think that the tide is going to start turning there and they're going to rebuild that roster. So maybe 5 years from now, it's a better matchup for USC. I'm sure that especially like from Lincoln Riley's standpoint, but probably from Jen Cohen's standpoint as well, that those things are factors. I mean, who even knows if Lincoln Riley will be around, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it's going to come down to if they reopen these negotiations and they come to the table, it's like, okay, we'd like to continue this in 2030. but we want it to be in week 1 or week 0, then Notre Dame should just walk away. It's like, fine, we haven't played you the last 4 years. We're doing just fine. And that's what this is. And that's what's really unfortunate about this whole thing. But maybe that could be a ploy. I mean, from Lincoln Riley, it wouldn't shock me. He ran away from Oklahoma when they were getting ready to join the SEC.
Yep.
He was a part of the downfall of the Pac-12. And now
Yep.
he doesn't want to play Notre Dame anymore because he's just afraid of elite competition. And it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want them at this point to even, resume this series if they can work something out by 2030? Like, where are you now especially after this news today?
A high-level college football fan in me is, I would love it. It's Notre Dame and USC. Those are two historic programs going back and forth. But now, based on the way the committee evaluates and how they just kind of move teams in and out of the playoffs at their will, let's be real about something here, Sean. Notre Dame adding BYU to their schedule in place of USC is getting a bump in strength of schedule.
That's exactly right. It actually works out better for Notre Dame, assuming BYU is, close next year, close to what they were this year. It's Notre Dame.
I mean, I can't coin this as my own because Sean Davis asked me this earlier today in today's show. But he was like, when is the last time that Notre Dame beat USC and it bumped their resume? I mean, this year kind of, and then they lost to Oregon and people are like, okay, not as good of a loss. Certainly didn't in 2024.
Right.
I mean, they were undefeated and ranked 10th in 2023, and then they proceeded to lose 5 of their 6 last games.
Yeah. And I mean, it bumped them for like a week or two, but then, as you said, once they start to spiral, it does nothing for Notre Dame at the end. And Notre Dame was pretty much already out of contention at that point, unfortunately, anyway. But a lot of people chiming in. Cindy says, USC wimped out on us. They just can't hang with the big boys, can they? Joe says Notre Dame was already planning ahead with the Clemson deal, and that was a nice insurance policy that Notre Dame locked up with that deal with Clemson. I mean, obviously, with all the back and forth that had gone on, there was a lot of uncertainty, and they felt like they needed to lock up a long-term partner. I'm really curious to see what Thanksgiving weekend is going to start looking like now, like where those games are played and what that looks like with USC and Stanford. There's still a lot of uncertainty with what's even going to happen with Stanford going forward.
Yeah. Final week of the regular season is going to be real interesting for Notre Dame moving forward.
But they do have BYU. And what we will do is take a timeout. And then when we come back, we will talk about this home and home with BYU. Some thoughts on that. I've got some comments from Notre Dame Athletic Director Pete Bavacqua. He talked about teams wanting to schedule Notre Dame earlier this fall. So we will hear some of his comments on that. And then people can chime in the meantime. Some other news going on in terms of transfer portal. Jadon Blair in the portal. We'll touch on that before this hour ends as well. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with irishbreakdown.com. So apparently Joe in the YouTube chat is a USC fan. He says no one can answer why Notre Dame refuses to play week 1. They're not refusing to play week 1, except for maybe next year, because they already have a week 1 game scheduled. Joe, I don't know if you're familiar with college football scheduling, but these schedules are made years in advance. And Notre Dame has had, like, for one, Notre Dame was supposed to play Wisconsin at Lambeau Field 5 years ago during the COVID season, but obviously COVID interrupted that, and they had to push it to this season. And the fact that they are playing that at Lambeau and not just on one of the school's home campuses, that complicates the flexibility that Notre Dame has. So, like, they may not, want to continue to go, like, they've already done a lot of gymnastics to try to satisfy USC in all this, but they've already got a contract to play a week 1 game next year. That's why they can't play week 1. It's not because Notre Dame is scared. It's because they have a game scheduled and a contract signed to play at Lambeau Field, an NFL stadium in Wisconsin, against the Wisconsin Badgers. It ain't all about USC. I'm sorry. It's also, honestly not all about Notre Dame, but there's only so much flexibility you can have when these schedules are signed and, made out so many years in advance. Notre Dame and USC have been playing for a century. Like it feels like two rivals who are also partners in the schedule should be able to, both sides should have more flexibility than what they have had. And USC has had far less flexibility in what they want to do. It's been excuse after excuse after excuse for why USC doesn't want to continue this thing. They don't want to play Thanksgiving weekend because they don't want to get beat at the end of the season. And they've also said they don't want 2 rivalry games back to back with both Notre Dame and UCLA in late November. Like, they've said both of those things. So, like, it's a very long list of what USC doesn't want, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, the finger could be pointed in the opposite direction. Why doesn't USC want to play the last week of every single year during rivalry weekend? I mean, look, and it's not even just for this year, Sean. I mean, I think of the year like in 2028. Right now, Notre Dame has Texas and Arkansas slated in back-to-back weeks in September 9th and September 16th. So then the ask of Notre Dame would then to travel to USC in week 1 and then host Texas and Arkansas back-to-back. Whereas right now, USC's only out of conference game right now is Fresno State. It's just, and then you have other years coming up down the pike where it's, they play Texas and then Alabama within 2 weeks of each other.
Exactly. And that's part of it is, again, like did it make sense for both Miami and Texas A&M to be the first 2 games of the season this year? Probably not. And those are the kind of things that you also want to avoid. Like you're mentioning in that Texas-Arkansas example, you would like to have probably a MAC school or some other group of 5 school, like to open up the season and, ease in that way. And then you have those 2 games against SEC teams in back-to-back weeks, so again, it's not all just about USC. There are other factors that come into play, and probably the 2030 date does make it a little bit easier because once you get 2030 and beyond, those specific dates against those specific kind of teams aren't already booked up. But it's just like, you can't just come in with a murderer's row, and not that USC is murderer's row, but you expect them to be quality competition, especially like opening up the season in a rivalry game and all that kind of stuff. I've got no problem with putting the USC game at the beginning of the season, but it also can't be at the sake of Notre Dame's competitiveness. Like, they have to manage a schedule and put a schedule together that makes sense for them and not just for the other side. And right now, it's just like it like putting it at the beginning of the season predominantly makes much more sense for USC than it does for Notre Dame when you've got all these future schedules already worked out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you completely.
So back the week of the Notre Dame-USC game, Pete Bavacqua, Notre Dame's athletic director, was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he talked a little bit about teams wanting to schedule Notre Dame.
For us, we're lucky that we have a long list of really prominent teams that want to play us. They want to do home and homes. They want us to come to their stadiums. They want to come here to Notre Dame. And, that's great. And that's a fortunate position to be in. And that's the power of Notre Dame and the power of the program under Coach Freeman.
So there you go. Pete Bavacqua talking about that long list, and Jack Swarbrick used to talk about that as well. And it's this whole Notre Dame BYU thing, 2026 and 2027. Again, that is what's up now that USC is off the schedule. Notre Dame will go to BYU next year. BYU will come to Notre Dame in 2027. And I think it's kind of funny with all this stuff that's been going on, with all the bluster from BYU fans talking about Notre Dame ducking them in the hard-hitting Pop-Tarts Bowl, and Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, ripping Notre Dame and, taking jabs at Notre Dame, and, all these supposed threats from athletic directors around the country who are going to freeze out Notre Dame when it comes to scheduling. Well, guess what? Money seems to win out every time. Like BYU was more than happy to schedule Notre Dame because they know they'll get a sellout crowd in Provo when Notre Dame comes to town. And they know they'll also get on national TV, both for that home game as well as their road game when they come here in 2027, Trevor.
Absolutely. And I'll do you one even better. I guarantee that game's going to be on Fox. So ESPN can't even touch that money.
There you go. But, the TV partner is happy. Like Fox is happy as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this was a very savvy move by Pete Bavacqua, in my opinion. We were kind of hoping to see, what he was going to do after the playoff snub and the comments from the ACC and the comments from the Big 12 commissioner. And his response was, okay, well, we're going to go and we're going to schedule BYU, and not in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And do you know how easy of a selling point that probably was for Pete Bavacqua? Of, hey, look, why play us when you're not going to, get us with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price or Aamil Wagner? Hey, face us at our best. After we want to face you at your best, and we'll even come to you guys first, and we'll come to Provo. I mean, I think that's absolutely fantastic. I love.
I think so as well. I think so as well. BB Rich in the YouTube chat says, "What a joke! Actually, what a joke! Y'all don't want to play them in the bowl, and y'all want to play in the regular season to make your Cupcakes G5 schedule getting even worse. BYU will not help your Cupcakes schedule." Okay. Not really sure what you're referring to with G5. That Notre Dame is not a Big Ten team, so they're not scheduling a bunch of Group of Five teams. Have they played Group of Fives? Yeah. Like last year, for example, they had to add Army to the schedule because Miami ducked out on that. Miami was supposed to come to Notre Dame last year, but they scheduled Florida A&M and they overscheduled. They scheduled a 13th game, so they were allowed to pull out of coming to Notre Dame last year so that they could host Florida A&M and get a cupcake walkover win. But again, like that's something that nobody nationally talks about at all. The fact that Miami pulled out of that and the ACC didn't make them stick to it in all this Notre Dame versus the ACC. How about the ACC saying, hey, Miami, this is that feels like that would be a pretty high profile game. Feels like that would be beneficial for everybody if you had stayed and gone to Notre Dame Stadium and played that game, but it didn't work out that way. So Miami is coming to Notre Dame next year instead. But I don't know.
I mean, I guess if the standard for a cupcake schedule is 10 Power 4 opponents, then I don't really know what to tell you.
D-Rock says the BYU deal must have embarrassed the Big 12 commissioner when what he said a week ago, conferences should freeze out Notre Dame. I'm going to be curious to see because this is only a 2-year deal. And so if Notre Dame and USC, if the earliest they're going to get back on the schedule together is 2030, that's 2 more years, 2028 and 2029 that Notre Dame is going to have to fill, that on the schedule as well. I don't know if potentially Clemson takes care of that since they've got that longer term contract, but having looked at I didn't look today. I don't know if maybe you've got that, what those 28 and 29s look like. But I guess my point is we could be hearing pretty soon another new opponent maybe being announced for the 2028 and 29 seasons.
Potentially on some of the future schedules, USC wasn't on there past 2026. So they were probably looking for him anyways. But yeah, very interested to see what gets announced.
Yes. Okay. BB, let me know when you speak English and then we can talk once again. So some other news for Notre Dame that I wanted to get to. Something came out today. Jadon Blair, freshman safety, has entered the transfer portal, one of a handful of guys who have entered the portal for Notre Dame. And, this is it's a relatively big one, like a highly regarded, highly recruited guy, Jadon Blair. And there were a lot of expectations, both I think from his side as well as Notre Dame's side and the fan standpoint, obviously, for being someone, ranked as high as he was in the recruiting process, that he, might be able to come in and make some immediate impact. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out as a freshman, and now he's hitting the transfer portal. So what do you think about his decision on this, Trevor?
I mean, it stinks because you understand the upside of what Jadon Blair had. I mean, Sean, you and I were both at spring practices. We were at the first day of fall camp, and we got to see some of the promise. And so you never want to lose an upside talent, in somebody like Jadon Blair. But then I think it's also a testament to the status of the roster right now. I mean, look, it's not like he was going to be a bona fide starter coming in this year. He would have had the chance to compete for a spot in the rotation. But we're talking about a safety room that likely returns a Don Schuler, Tay Johnson, Luke Talich. You got Joey O'Brien coming in behind it. Ethan Long got a lot of meaningful reps this season, towards the end of the season. But there's going to be a loaded room, and it stinks. I wish that he would have stayed. I understand his reasons for leaving, but with the house settlement and everything like that, this is just the new day and age of college football, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like you're going to get hit every year. The question is always going to be, to what level do you get hit with guys entering the portal? Notre Dame lost some fairly significant guys last year, most of them on the offensive line, and a lot of that was obviously because of the depth. And now you look at the safety room, and you had guys like both Don Schuler and Tay Johnson obviously excelled this year, and Luke Talich came on and was making a lot of plays out there. And, like Ethan Long, who's in the same class as Jadon Blair, he had more opportunities than Blair, and he looked pretty solid when he was able to get out there as well. And you talked about, just like the recruiting as well. You got some dudes coming in the secondary in this 2026 class who are going to be here, just in a month, basically, when everyone starts reporting, because they're going to have, 24 early enrollees or 23 early enrollees that they're going to have. It's insane. But a lot of those guys, they're in the secondary as well. And I think it's just a little bit of impatience, a guy like Blair wanting to get on the field as early as possible. And again, you don't blame him, but it's just like with the money that moves around and offers being thrown around, I'm sure that there was some of that out there. And so Jadon Blair is hitting the transfer portal as a result. And then another one, Tabron Benny-Powell announced over the weekend as well that he is in the transfer portal. And, again, like another guy caught in the numbers game, basically. I don't think anyone begrudges him that, just because it feels like the talent in that position group is like, think about what the safety room looks like now compared to what it looked like even 2 years ago.
Oh, it's night and day. The loaded talent, the depth. I mean, it's bigger, it's faster, it's longer. It's the only thing now is experience to some degree, but that's all in the depth. I mean, Luke Talich has meaningful experience. Don Schuler if he comes back, is a 3-year starter at this point. Tay Johnson absolutely broke out this year. I mean, this is a room that within a matter of a couple seasons went from like, hey, we might have to take multiple players in the transfer portal at this spot to, hey, we're good. And now we're losing. That's what it
feels like to me. It feels like to me, Jalen Stroman should probably be, like, it doesn't feel like they should have to take a safety from the portal again in the very near future. Like if you get cut in a numbers game 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, maybe you could see that. But for the near future, it doesn't feel like that's probably, like that's going to be a need again. And they've gone out at least 2 or I guess the last 3 or 4 years really in taking safeties out there. And they've kind of reached obviously guys have worked out better than others. I guess it's that way. But they've recruited that room so well. And again, it goes back to Mike Mickens and the job some of these other guys are doing. Carlos in the YouTube chat says, are we ever going to stop seeing transfer portal stuff, coaching moves? When will there be some dang loyalty? Good luck with that, I think, Carlos, unfortunately. The luck basically comes with the opportunity, and there's so much money on the line now. Jabron Payne, were you surprised at all when Jabron announced over the weekend that he's going to the portal?
No, I wasn't. I mean, it's kind of the same situation that we just talked about with the previous 2 kids. I mean, he's just in such a loaded room, and unfortunately, that injury set him back. I mean, he was Notre Dame's premier third down running back in 2023. He gets hurt in the offseason and heading into 2024, and Aeneas Williams stepped up and earned that spot. Look, for as awesome as it is talking about stacking recruiting classes and bringing in these high-level recruits, somebody's got to leave. Like, that's just the numbers game at this point. And unfortunately, I wasn't surprised, but I hope for the best for him, and whatever school takes him, they're getting a good back.
Absolutely. It was turned out to be a busy weekend. There was something else that happened Notre Dame related football wise that I'm not sure that everybody heard about. Diehard Irish Breakdown people, I'm sure did, but we will talk about that after we take a quick timeout with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com winding down, along with the first hour winding down with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Steiners. We've still got a second hour coming up, and we've got a lot to talk to, including everything going on with Marcus Freeman right now. We were originally going to talk about that at the start of the show. Then this USC news came up today. We were talking about Jabron Payne, YouTube chat. Not sure what that handle is. There's some letters and numbers there, but they're basically asking Indiana. He was committed there before signing day. I mean, he was committed there. He followed Dylan McCullough from Indiana to Notre Dame, and obviously McCullough's with the Raiders now, and there's a different, Cignetti wasn't there when Dylan McCullough was there, so a different coaching staff. But I would say it's a possibility. I mean, Cignetti has obviously been wide open to taking guys from the transfer portal, so I wouldn't rule it out. From what I understand, like Jabron Payne knew coming into this year about the numbers. I think he thought that maybe he'd have a chance at, a little bit more playing time than what he has. But there's, like between McCullough and Sider, there's some differences in how they use that room. There's no doubting that. From what I understand, if Payne could have found like what he thought was a better situation for a landing spot, he would have hit the transfer portal last offseason, and now the writing is just on the wall. Even losing Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, you've still got Aeneas Williams and like you've got Kedron Young coming back, you've got Nolan James, and you've got Walton and Osborne both coming in. So he'll be able to go out, and I'm sure he'll find a nice power 4 spot someplace and be able to go and get plenty of snaps somewhere. Give himself an opportunity to show what he can do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Big news of the day, if you're tuning in late, is Notre Dame and USC have ended their historic long-running rivalry. It has come to an end predominantly because USC decided they needed the game moved up to the front of the schedule. And, like some other factors, they were talking about college football playoff competitiveness and those kind of things. They hope to maybe be able to resume it in 2030. But in the meantime, Notre Dame and BYU will be playing next year in Provo, Utah, and then in 2027 at Notre Dame Stadium. And, it's not Notre Dame-USC. It obviously doesn't carry that kind of clout, but at the same time, these are two teams who are both sitting right next to each other in the college football playoff rankings this year, and they both felt like they got snubbed this year. And so I think it's going to be fun. Like, I would rather see them play in the regular season than in this bowl game when who knows what the roster is going to look like. I realize people keep, wanting to point the finger at Notre Dame for backing out and quitting and all this kind of stuff. Like what do you want to see half a roster go out there and compete against each other? I would rather see it in the regular season when it's going to mean something in the regular season the next 2 years. It's just an overblown exhibition game playing in a bowl game with all the opt-outs that everyone's going to have.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this at the time, Sean, when Notre Dame opted out of the bowl game. It's just ESPN has done their best to try to devalue bowl games outside of the playoffs, and nobody started caring about the Pop-Tarts Bowl until Notre Dame's name was attached to it. I'm with you. I would much rather see Notre Dame BYU play in the regular season where there's actual playoff implications on the line, not this storyline of what could have been and who both teams felt like they deserved to be in the playoffs. But now, they have the opportunity to win the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Like, man.
No thanks. No thanks at all. The other big news this weekend, quarterback Teddy Gerard has reclassified to 2026. He's a signee, or I guess I should back that up. He was a commit for the 2027 class, and there's been some talk for the last several months about he might reclassify for 2026, and that is officially on. So he won't be enrolling in the spring because he's got to finish, his last semester of high school and graduate from high school and get his academics in order. But he is expected to be on campus with the rest of the Notre Dame freshmen who report this summer, like in June, for summer workouts and all that kind of stuff. How vital do you think this is with Teddy Gerard coming in and reclassifying, Trevor?
Yeah, I love the move. From our understanding, it's if CJ Carr does what a lot of people think that he's going to do this upcoming season, he's not going to be in South Bend in 2027.
Right.
And so the thought behind it was, let's get all three of Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Gerard on campus, get Teddy reps with the scout team. And so then that way he has enough experience under his belt to compete for the starting job. I like that move. I think that move sets them up to not have to go and look into the transfer portal.
Exactly.
And I think you have three really high ceiling guys behind CJ Carr. And Sean, for the first time in years, Notre Dame's starting quarterback is actually in a position where he can also help bring along some of the younger quarterbacks. Whereas in previous years, because of the transfer portal, you had guys like Tyler Buckner and guys like Drew Pine helping teach Sam Hartman the playbook.
Right.
I mean, so now I love the development and what they're setting up in that room.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense because, like you said, you're going to have three guys who are all going to be really good. They will all be in there in that quarterback room, along with Gino Guidugli and Mike Denbrock and CJ Carr this year. And that like if CJ Carr makes the decision about a year or so from now, that, as you said, we probably expect that he's going to make if he takes another step and declares for the draft in 2027, then you're going to have potentially a three-man quarterback competition going on in the spring of 2027 for Notre Dame, and Gerard will be right there in the thick of it. So I think it's good for everybody, and it's pretty cool. Like the guy is obviously physically developed enough and smart enough that he's able to do something like this. So I like it a lot. And you get in that college weight room a year earlier as well. And I think that that's important for like these high school guys to be able to come in, that conditioning and put on a little extra armor to get ready for that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and Teddy Gerard's older for his age, or older for his class. Long day, Sean. He is older compared to his class. Like he's older than Tiki Bullets.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, we got there. Yeah, we got there. But he's an older kid in his class. It works out well. Get him in the college, weight training program earlier. Get him in a college nutrition program earlier. I like the benefits.
Are you saying he had a mustache when he was a freshman? Like, is that?
I mean, probably.
A few extra biceps. Oh, before we wrap up this hour, what happened to Notre Dame men's basketball yesterday? You've got a bye game against Purdue Fort Wayne, and they lose 72-69. Seemed like they had this momentum built up, getting ready for the Christmas break and getting ready to start ACC play, and then kaplooey. What the heck?
I was speechless.
You're still speechless, it seems.
Still kind of am. I mean, it was a bad game, man. I mean, it was a rough game. They were ice cold. I mean, this was a very old school game of a
7 of 27 from 3-point range. Yeah,
living and dying by that, and it's just, it was rough.
Yep,
it was so upsetting.
Indy Forever 72 says wasn't much of a bye game. Yeah, and they're not going to get a refund for it either. So
no,
unfortunately, the flip side was the women. They just pounded Bellarmine 110-38. Hannah Hidalgo went out and got a triple-double, the first 30-point triple-double in Notre Dame program history. 30 points, 10 assists, and 13 steals. It was just like the Wolves were out on the attack. Had a feeling it was going to be pretty ugly, and that's exactly how it turned out. And so, much more positive for the women going into their holiday break. Let's put it that way.
Understandably so. Yeah, there's a lot of work that has to be done before conference play starts for the men's team.
Yep. And then a couple other players, Gisela Sanchez and Kassan Prosper, each had double-doubles. Prosper had 20 points and 14 boards for her fourth straight game with at least 20 points. So things going well as the women get ready to resume ACC play. They had their ACC opener a couple of weeks ago at Florida State, and a week from tonight, they will host Pittsburgh. That'll be their next game. And then we're going on the road for New Year's next week, Georgia Tech and Duke. So 3 games in 7 days coming up next week for the Irish women as they get back into play after the holidays. Okay, that's going to do it for the first hour of the show. We've got a lot coming up in hour number 2, though. This stuff with Marcus Freeman and the New York Giants keeps popping up, and we are going to talk about that and more. And I'll just Michael Johnson snuck this in just as I was getting ready to wrap up this hour. How long is KK Bransford out? They don't have a timeline right now. They are very hopeful and expect her to be back at some point this season, but they're not putting a timeline on it right now. It's going to be a while. Like, again, they haven't specified a timeline. I think a minimum of a month is probably what they're looking at, unofficially, but that's just me, just based on what I've seen. So I'd say a minimum of a month, and it'll just kind of be wait and see after that. But the good news is no ACL tear, any of that kind of stuff, and she will be back at some point. All right, the Marcus Freeman stuff and more coming up in Rapid Fire, hour number 2, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Along with Trevor Trowbridge and Bobby Hensley, it's hour 2 of the show, and it is rapid fire time on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat. We're going to talk about Marcus Freeman here in just a second, but I feel like since we're living in radio world, we should probably re-drop the big news of the day for anyone who is just coming in and hasn't heard the news that Notre Dame and USC have gone splits. It's Splitsville for the Irish and the Trojans. They have ended their long-running historic rivalry. USC wanted to move their game that has traditionally been their home game that has traditionally been Thanksgiving weekend up to the front of the schedule, and Notre Dame already has Wisconsin in week 1 at Lambeau Field next year, and just a lot of conflicts that the two sides couldn't get past. They hope to resume in 2030. Bobby Hensley is with us, and Bobby, you didn't get to join us for the first hour of the show. You and I and Trevor and Vince and Jesse and everyone, we've talked about this at different points throughout the season, obviously. So what do you think about hearing this, that it's actually official now?
I think it's almost just kind of a relief because it's been hanging out there for so long. If you looked at their future schedules, the date was always TBD. I think when they didn't announce anything the weekend of the game this year, we kind of all knew it was coming, and it was just nice to finally get that finality of it. That at least we know what it is for right now.
Felt like we knew it was coming, and now it is finally over, and everyone can just make other plans. And Notre Dame has already moved on to the next date. See ya, honey. We've got somebody else lined up over here. Don't let that door hit you in the butt on the way out. We're going to play BYU for the next 2 years. And I think people are really excited, don't you, Trevor, about this Notre Dame BYU home and home coming up the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think so. Just especially with all the drama after the decision to opt out of the bowl and all the playoff discussion, it's definitely generated a lot more hype than what. It's not like none of this drama happened and then they scheduled BYU. I think this was the right opponent for this time.
And again, we talked about this extensively in the first hour of the show today. So if you missed that, you can always go back to the YouTube channel and back it up to the beginning, whether it's Irish Breakdown or Sports Radio WSBT. And Trevor and I talked about it quite a bit in the first hour. And of course, when the podcast drop, you can always find it there as well. Little programming note. Don't forget, tomorrow is Festivus. There is a Festivus for the rest of us. Bobby won't be here to do the feats of strength with us, but it will be a 3-man weave on tomorrow's show though as well. Vince is going to come out of his health-related hiatus. Vince's favorite show is the Festivus show every year. So Jesse and Vince and I will be holding Festivus as we air our sports grievances. And trust me, I got a lot of problems with you people. We'll be doing that on tomorrow's show. Looking forward to that.
I bet you do, Sean. I bet that's one of your favorites.
Especially you, Bobby. I've got a lot of problems with you. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to it by now. I got thick skin.
All right, let's talk about Marcus Freeman, because this New York Giants thing keeps coming up. Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network says Freeman is a top candidate for the New York Giants coaching vacancy. And, I mean, I think we all get it at this point. With success comes demand. We can all concede that. Right. We talked about Diana Rossini's report last week that, the Giants were interested in Marcus Freeman. Before that, he became the betting favorite on, some of the sports books. And now you've got Garafolo has him as the top candidate, one of the top candidates for the job, the top college guy in terms of candidates for the job. So, Trevor, what do you make of all this, where this is with Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman and the New York Giants?
I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but a lot of it is for clicks. He is one of the hottest coaches in college football right now, and he's put together 2 really good seasons for Notre Dame, played for a national championship a year ago, and I would argue, especially after the first round of this past playoffs, would probably be in line to compete for another one this year if they didn't get snubbed. And so I get it. I understand it. I don't see Marcus Freeman going to the NFL. I really don't. If he does, I'm going to think that's a very interesting decision. But, yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's a lot of it's to drive clicks.
So broken record, that's all we can be because it just keeps coming back, right? I think it's interesting the way all this stuff is worded because it's always the Giants are very interested in Marcus Freeman, but we never hear Marcus Freeman's interest in them or his desire to go pro. So I think it's all smoke and mirrors until Freeman has something out there. And I don't know, maybe you guys have an opinion, but if he's not saying definitively he's coming back, is that him showing interest? I know that he's had a good college career so far. It's young still, it's fresh, but two things. One, where do we really think that he's done that would show that he could be a pro coach? And two, I'm always curious because Sean brought this up a couple weeks ago, I think it was, because it's been the same topic that we keep talking about. What about why isn't Cignetti ever mentioned for these kind of things, or some of the or Kirby Smart, some of the other college? Is it because they're entrenched in their programs? So I get that. I understand why Freeman keeps coming up. He's probably the most personable guy. Everything looks good about him, but why him? And he hasn't said anything about wanting to go pro. So unless that's all happening behind the scenes, I don't know why we would have to think that he would be a candidate.
Well, I think that it's just with him particularly, he's got such a different personality than a lot of these coaches. And he is so young, obviously, as well. And I think that plays a big part in like Curt Cignetti, Marcus Freeman. Could you have two complete, more polar opposite personalities than those two guys?
That's a good point.
I don't think so. And Marcus Freeman also, it was a cup of coffee, but does at least have some, he was drafted by the Chicago Bears, so like he at least had, like he's been in the NFL, but he obviously has not coached in the NFL. Now I disagree to an extent about what you're saying, Trevor, like about it being all for clicks, because like this kind of stuff, it's coming more from the NFL side as opposed to just the college side, So I do think that there's something to it. But to Bobby's point, what I would agree with is just like with the Chicago Bears thing last year, the Bears were very interested in Marcus Freeman. How actually interested was Marcus Freeman in the Chicago Bears? Like it doesn't feel like there was nearly quite as much interest. And also the fact that Notre Dame, went as far as they did in the college football playoffs all the way to the national championship game, that kind of, negated, I think, some of that. I do think that there is some leverage play here by Marcus Freeman's agent, though, as well. Like, I think that is a big part of it. And when you look at the fact that Marcus Freeman hasn't come out and refuted any of this, I think that comes into play. Like it's to Marcus Freeman's interest in terms of negotiating a potential extension with Notre Dame that he doesn't say anything right now.
I mean, to a degree, sure. But is this going to happen every single time there's a coach's opening?
I do agree with that. I do agree with that.
Like that's, you know what I mean? Like if I understand the leverage, but there's also no harm. Like I don't understand the ability to come out and say, yes, I'm staying. I will be here for this season. I'll be here for as ever long as they'll have me, yada, yada, yada.
Well, but if you're negotiating a contract, that doesn't do Marcus Freeman any good to come out and say that, right?
Well, agreed. But then he did it last year, and now we're doing it this year. And then next year when the Jets head coaching opening comes up, then it's going to be the same thing then. And then if Ryan Day ever leaves to go to the NFL, then it's going to be the same thing then for Ohio State. And then, if the Colts position ever comes open, then it'll be the same thing after that. I'm just saying this is a broken cycle. It's like, are we going to just see this every time there's a major coach's opening? That's my gripe with it.
Which, to your gripe, I'm agreeing with you, but it's frustrating to me because I'm like, so all this is about a contract leverage possibly, because it's going to be every year. So what did last year's contract mean if we're just going to redo it again this year?
And I completely agree with that. Like, are you going to renegotiate every time something comes up? I do agree with that. Like, and like if you're Marcus Freeman's agent, though, you feel really good about it because you're making money for yourself. You're making
sure,
and everything else, but it doesn't do anyone else any good because in the meantime, there are also agents who are actively involved with college athletes now, including guys who are in the transfer portal. And we know from things that we have heard that this is working against Notre Dame right now. The transfer portal opens next week, and there are apparently, like college agents who are saying, well, you don't know what's going to happen with Marcus Freeman. You don't want to go there. Like, why would you want to transfer there? So it is, like from the contract standpoint of Marcus Freeman and a potential extension, that works to his advantage. But in terms of, being to actually make your, continue to keep your roster at the championship level, and that means augmenting it with, good players from the transfer portal, like a Malachi Fields or, Devontae, like those guys, you need to be able to do that. And if this situation is actively working against that, then you need to get this resolved as quickly as possible and not let this continue to hover out there in the atmosphere, because it's weeks now that this has been going on.
See, but that's exactly it. This is one of those necessary evils of the game right now. That's the only recruiting chip you can have against Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame right now as you enter the portal. Well, we don't know if he'll be there, because every time there's a pro job, he's going to be named for it. And what point, like if Notre Dame has a bad year somewhere, who's to say he's not going to cut bait and go? That's what I'm saying that somebody else would say. I don't think he would do that. But you got to look at his interest, and it is concerning that he isn't clear about what his intentions are or what he's committed to right now. Because if he's just doing this to get more contract for his agent and to come back, then it doesn't look good on him. And then every year we're already going to have these discussions if they do well. And then every year with the recruits and the transfer portal, we're going to have even more of this. And it's one of the frustrating parts. We just got done talking about the playoff and the selection committee for weeks.
Part of the game,
and now we're back.
Right
now, it's this part.
It's
again.
part of the game. But if you really want your program to thrive, the place you're at to thrive, then you can't be playing this game publicly every year.
Well, and that's the flip side, Bobby. You asked, it's like, why are other coaches like Ryan Day and Kirby Smart never up for it? Because when they have been, they've just shut it down. They're like, I'm not going to this team.
That's a great point.
So when there's a coach that always leaves the open door, of course teams are going to continually go back to him.
Right.
See, Notre Dame 1961 in the YouTube chat says, relax. Freeman has a family with children in school. He's not leaving. I mean, all these coaches have families with kids in school. Like, you can also pull up and go to school in another place. I don't think that has anything to do with it. Like, Marcus Freeman's not just going to stay here for the next 18 years because he's got kids who are going to be in school. They're going to be in school no matter where he is.
Millions of dollars.
And guys get hired and fired all the time too.
Yeah.
That's part of the decision, but his kids are also young enough that you can pack up. If you've got a job that you really want, you can go someplace else. There's always another school that you can go to. I don't think that's the at the top of the list.
And I guess
it's on the list, but I don't know it's the top.
Let's all be clear. We don't think he's leaving. We don't think that there's anything there, right?
Oh, I don't think he's leaving.
I don't think he is, but at the same time, this does put enough doubt into the atmosphere that, there's reason. Here's on the topic of negotiations and leverage. This was Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua 2 weeks ago when this came up at the press conference that Bavacqua held when he was asked about Marcus Freeman and NFL teams interested in his services.
I would never say we wouldn't match anything when it comes to Marcus. Everybody has eyes on Marcus. College has eyes on Marcus. NFL has eyes on Marcus. I bet Hollywood has eyes on Marcus, right? I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the next, Leo DiCaprio movie with Martin Scorsese. Marcus is Marcus. All the credit to him. He deserves it. He's the absolute best coach in the country for Notre Dame, full stop. He's one of the greatest college coaches in the country. And people forget how young he is. So I get it. And that's a compliment to him and his success and the way he represents himself and the way he prepares and who he is and how he talks. It's one of my main obligations and responsibilities to this university is to make sure Marcus wakes up every day knowing that he is supported and valued by Notre Dame. And I can say with 100% certainty he feels that way. And Notre Dame is totally aligned around the importance of college football for Notre Dame. We're totally aligned on how he is the perfect coach for Notre Dame. And he's, as I like to say, it's tough to say he's more than the Notre Dame football coach because being the Notre Dame football coach means so much. But he's more than the Notre Dame football coach. He's part of this university. He's part of the fabric of this university. So is Joanna. So are his kids. He's everywhere. He's at, as you've heard me say before, he's at soccer games, women's and men's basketball games, hockey games, talking to students. He's an amazing individual and an amazing leader, and we feel blessed that he's our coach. I make sure that he knows that he will be where he deserves to be, and that is at the top tier of college football coaches when it comes to compensation every year. I view his contract, although a multi-year contract, as a living, breathing document that we will revise every year as need be to make sure he's where he deserves to be.
I mean, if I am Marcus Freeman's agent and I'm hearing Pete Bavacqua talk, I think that's exactly why you're in the situation that you're in right now. He led off with, I would never say we wouldn't match anything. And then he talks about they're going to be in the top level of compensation every year. Like nothing Pete Bavacqua said there puts Notre Dame in a good position of leverage when it comes to, talking about a contract extension with Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I think that's the weirdest thing, because when that press conference came out, the way that it was said it made it almost sound like the contract extension was like done. Like they were just waiting to announce it. And here we are a couple weeks later, and we're still having the same conversation. Like I don't know. I don't know which side has leverage. I don't really know what the end game is for either camp. I don't know what the end game is for Marcus Freeman here. It's like, and his agent. Do you just field every single job opening and compile all those numbers? You guys like, all right, Pete, this is what I'm getting offered this year. What can you do? Actually, wait, don't send me a contract over yet, because there might be one more job, and I want to see what that does to the numbers as well. And then same thing, Sean, like you said, Pete kind of just gave away all of the leverage for
Exactly.
So it's like, what are we doing here? Like
exactly. I do still have I do think that Marcus Freeman is going to sign an extension, and at some point we're going to hear about that extension. Again, the transfer portal opens January 2nd. Maybe that happens before the portal officially opens on January 2nd. I don't know. I will also say this, because specific to the New York Giants, well, I'm sure that Marcus Freeman is flattered by, this NFL interest. And again, it's a huge leverage point for him when it comes to negotiating with Notre Dame. The Giants situation is
trash.
Not a good one.
No.
That is right. There is no denying that. And I think that even the most ardent New York Giants fans would admit that as well. It makes sense that the Giants would covet Freeman to some extent. Their general manager, Joe Shane, is from Elkhart, he grew up a Notre Dame fan. So I'm sure that, maybe some of that comes into play with seeing the success that Notre Dame has had under Marcus Freeman, that, soft connection that he has there with Shane growing up in the area. Shout out Elkhart. You know what I'm saying right there, Trevor. But I think Joe Shane is in over his head as a general manager of the New York Giants, though. I'll give him the fact that he's young. He fixed the Giants salary cap when he took over a few years back, and he modernized some things in an organization that kind of needed to be drug out of the Stone Ages to some extent. But to me, Joe Shane comes off as a naive guy who's a so-so talent evaluator, and outside the fact that some of their first round picks that they've hit, but their first round picks, I would hope you're going to hit more times than not in the first round. I mean, their roster shows it, though, when it comes to the talent evaluation. Then you throw in the fact that he blew the Saquon Barkley thing on TV, on HBO's Hard Knocks, after the Giants had resisted forever doing Hard Knocks. They finally do it, and then he's on camera just, okay, Saquon, walk to the Philadelphia Eagles, basically. He brings over, he and Brian Dable were a pair coming over from the Buffalo Bills together. They've got to fire him. They came over together. In the meantime, he let Brian Dable draft Jackson Dart before he fires him in the middle of the season, and Dart is good. Let's see if he can stay healthy in the long term, but they've got a horrible offensive line because, again, what has Shane done to address that? And then they drafted Abdul Carter, which, everyone obviously felt good about Abdul Carter at number 3, but you're already hearing about character issues with the guy that they drafted with the 3rd overall pick. Where's some due diligence there? So I just think that the New York Giants situation would be a horrible one for Marcus Freeman to walk into the way it's set up right now.
And you're not even mentioning that Daniel Jones walked away from him, and he's had pretty good year.
He did. Yeah.
So the Giants is the lynch in this, the linchpin to this, because I don't think that they know they can get him. I think they're just trying to run it up the flagpole to try and get a splash higher because, again, I don't know that college coaches going pro works that often anyway. So I don't know why at such a young age Marcus Freeman would want to risk leaving Notre Dame when he's elevated them above anything that Brian Kelly could do here. So there's just so many reasons that none of this makes sense. But to me, the biggest part of it's the Giants. Now, if Andy Reid were to retire and the Chiefs were looking at him and he has Mahomes and a solid team like that, that might be kind of tempting. But the Giants, that's somebody's going to go there for a year, year and a half, get fired again. So why would you do career suicide and make yourself go there and then never get a shot at the pros again? Hope to get a mid-major college job to build yourself back up, because that's what's going to happen to whoever goes to the Giants.
Honestly, like with everything going on with Tomlin in Pittsburgh, like if I were Marcus Freeman, like that would be the one that I would be looking at, because at least like they have stability within their organization much more so than a lot of these other places. And of course, it's Indy forever. I say all this stuff about the Giants as I'm wearing my Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt. Like this is not, like me just, like dragging them as or dogging them, as Indy Forever 72 is saying. I mean, it comes obviously as a fan, yes, of a team in their division and one of their rivals, but I fully admit that the New York Giants have won obviously 2 Super Bowls much more recently than the Dallas Cowboys. That was with a different set of management in place, though, when they were doing things a lot differently. Like those rosters were a heck of a lot better back then, and where they are right now is nowhere close to where they were 10, 12 years ago in that prime when Eli was there.
And now they have a good running back that's coming off of a really gruesome injury that they don't know what they're going to get out of him.
We've got to take a break, and then we will resume Rapid Fire and Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Let's keep it rolling. Rapid fire. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Don't know how rapid it is after that first segment.
Yeah, we filled some time.
Wanted to get a couple of super chats in here that had been
Love
sitting
that
in there.
profile photo.
Craig, the Miami Dolphins.
Heck yeah.
Craig Sebring. Thanks for the super chat. He says, Marcus Freeman's not leaving, especially for the Giants. Book it. I tend to agree.
That's it.
Bobby and I were talking during the break, and the other factor in this whole thing, like I just outlined why the Giants would not be an organization to go to for Marcus Freeman. You factor in, like, this guy has only been a head coach for 4 years. He's never coached in the NFL, even as an assistant coach. And it feels like, again, like when you look at the specific organization that's being talked about, that doesn't seem like a good fit where the general manager could be on the ropes within a year or two.
And he hasn't won a college championship yet. I think if he won a college championship, then there might be something with that.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I love Marcus Freeman, and I echo everything that Pete Bavacqua said about him and in the press conference. He's the right fit for Notre Dame. But also, if I'm an NFL GM and I'm looking to hire a coach, the 2024 season so far for Marcus Freeman's tenure has been the outlier.
That's true.
Didn't make the playoffs in 22, didn't make it in 23, had a great run in 24, and then you miss it this year. Now, I agree. Were they snubbed? Yes. Could they also have handled business in one of their first 2 games to make the playoffs?
Absolutely.
Also, yes. So, yeah, just a lot of things working, but I agree with where you guys are coming from.
Outbound in the YouTube chat says Freeman's not saying anything because he is going to be asked all about the college football playoff snub. He doesn't have to do a press conference to say anything. Like they can post something on social media. They can release a statement from him, saying, "Hey, I'm staying it. I'm happy at Notre Dame. I love it at Notre Dame," whatever it happens to be. But
can't wait to get back to work.
That's Brian Driscoll actually reached out to someone over there yesterday, and they said no statement is forthcoming at this point. So, is what it is. James with another super chat. Notre Dame, Miami, end of the year every year. Who says no? Not me. I'd take that. Would you take that if it was Thanksgiving weekend every year? Would you do a long-term contract with Miami?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to watch him come up to South Bend at the end of November every other year, like do some sort of home and home. I think that'd be great.
I mean, they're coming up at the beginning of November this year.
To answer the question, I think the only one that would say no is the ACC, who's trying to rotate opponents for Notre Dame. But that'd be great for Notre Dame. It'd be great for Miami.
I think so as well. A lot of people not happy about Micah Shrewsbury's team losing to Purdue Fort Wayne yesterday. I don't. Some of these handles, I don't know. It's been like, are we going on like a month since YouTube wiped out all the actual handles, and like we've got these weird usernames in the YouTube chat here that you can't read. But basically, this guy says Shrewsbury's a total embarrassment to Notre Dame, putting the hoops program back 30 years after Digger Phelps was gone. I don't know if I quite agree with that. Yesterday was not good. Like, we can all agree on that. Losing a home bye game to Purdue Fort Wayne is not good, but I do feel like we should probably let this season play out. There is still a full 2 months plus of ACC play to go, and still a chance that they can play themselves into the tournament. Let's at least wait and see what things look like. And I do feel like we all should be able to make a real full evaluation of Micah Shrewsbury by the end of this season.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, no, I agree with you, man. I mean, setting back 30 years is a bit excessive. I mean, he also just brought in the highest ranked recruit in Notre Dame basketball history in Jalen Harrelson. So I can't say that he did that while also setting the program back 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, the McLeod era wasn't great. But Mike Bray kind of he elevated the program. So, and then they joined the ACC. So the standards might be a little bit higher than what people are thinking, but they've always ebbed and flowed. They've had good years and they've had some really clunker of years. I think right now you got to give it the process to play out. It seems like Shrewsbury came in, lost a lot of stuff, didn't have very many gadgets last year. So this year, we don't even know where it's at. It's not even the new year yet. We're not even in conference play. Get a few wins, make yourself on the bubble, and see how much you can get this team to grow. Losing one bad game might wake them up.
Yeah. And this is also
Happened
now
before,
back-to-back seasons that they're going to be without Burton for a stretch.
Yeah.
Like a good stretch.
That does not help you at all when you're going to be, without your best player, especially now that you are getting into ACC play. But I was just getting ready to say, I mean, look at what happened with Northern Illinois and the football team last year. Like crazier things have happened. Not saying that definitely means basketball is going to turn it around, but
Nope. We heard it here first. Sean Stiers, Notre Dame's men's basketball team is playing for the ship this year, baby.
Yeah.
There you go.
Final Four is not enough. Championship game.
That's right. Ride or die. Ride or die.
No, they still have to make at least a run at the tournament to, I think, have a successful year. But when you have that many young people and the greatest recruit that they've ever had in the program, I think you have to give it a little bit of time because there's at least some positivity. Last year, there wasn't a whole lot at all. So, I mean, tripping up like that really hurts, but let's give them a little bit of time. It's a holiday season.
Yeah, they just grinched it though going into it. That's
yeah. They used up any good momentum that they had, so now they have to really pull out of it. But I still think they have some positives, so I'll give them a little bit of time.
James in the YouTube chat says buy, sell, hold. Marcus Freeman is the head coach of Notre Dame in the 2028 season. So that is 26, 26. So that's 3 seasons from now. Trevor looks excited to answer this question.
I'm going to hold.
I got to hold on it as well. Because, again, I agree with what you're saying, Trevor, and I think we've talked about it before. Like, he just did a contract extension last year because there was interest from outside. And we heard that comment from Pete Bavacqua saying, it's like the contract is like a liquid situation, but he's always going to be, top compensation and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's one thing when you're competing with other colleges, in terms of salary and contracts and everything else. It's another thing when you get the NFL into the picture. That's a whole different level to compete with. So,
but I'll say bye because I think I agree with what you were kind of saying about the Giants. It's not that he just wants to be a pro coach. It would have to be a good job. How many pro jobs do you think right now opening would actually be better than the job at Notre Dame? If you were a free agent, would you rather be a Notre Dame head coach right now as Marcus Freeman?
Yeah, but I mean, that's what happened. Like, there's always going, again, like I mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers as an example. Now, their roster in comparison to the New York Giants might not even be as good as the Giants, but that's because they have won so much over the years and they've never been high. Like they've never been so bad that they got like a top 10 pick or a top 5 pick, where you're going out and getting that kind of guy, so like they've been so consistent over the years that it just hasn't cycled out. So, that's probably from a roster situation, not the greatest, but again, in terms of organization and support, and those kind of things like that, to me, it's one of the better run historical organizations ever. I mean, like, look at the fact that you've had 3 head coaches, I think, in the last 60 years or something like that of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that says something for the stability that you get at a place like that. Other organizations like the Bengals, the Jets, like walking dumpster fires, just stay away as long as you can. But then, the other side of this is look at historically what the Detroit Lions were and how they've turned around so much in the last few years with a new general manager and a new head coach, and I think that you definitely have to have good synergy there. So,
yeah, but then he has to get linked up with a good general manager first to try and get the job. I just don't think that any of those openings on the good teams that would be more appealing than Notre Dame, I don't think they're going to be open and available to him. Because, those guys, like the Steelers could probably recruit any coach they wanted in any form of football. Why would you take a risk on a guy that is college, that's had one playoff run? And I'm not saying he's not capable of more or a great hire. I'm just saying that they could probably find whoever they want.
No, I agree with that. But Jack Swarbrick also took a risk on a guy who was a complete, had zero head coaching experience when he hired Marcus Freeman. And it's turned out pretty well. And I think that, again, part of that, his personality, the way he runs things, the way he does things, there's a lot of appeal there to the NFL side. I tell you what, we better take our last break and then we'll come back and wrap things up. Got a little bit of playoff talk to jump in here before we wrap things up tonight with Trevor Trowbridge and Bobby Hensley, Sean Steyer's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. All right, let's wind down rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Steyers, Trevor Trowbridge, Bobby Hensley. Everybody fired up for Christmas?
Always.
Yeah. Sure.
Always.
My gift is being able to sit here and talk with you guys.
Oh,
God, what a good guy.
I know.
No one's ever said that.
How
before.
could anyone not like you, Bobby?
I don't know. You find a way to do it.
There's those coworkers of yours. Talked to some of them in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't go well.
Tom Fornelli of CBS Sports says the only people mad about James Madison and Tulane being in the college football playoffs this year are the media and Notre Dame fans. Do you buy or sell that?
Sell. I mean, a lot of the frustration from Notre Dame fans came around the Miami-Alabama conversation. I mean, I'm sure that there are some Notre Dame fans out there that talk about the G5 bids. I think it's excessive that they got in too. But I mean, the media and Notre Dame fans. So who else is left then? Just other fans?
Right.
Like
Right.
So no, it's not just media and Notre Dame fans. A lot of people are unhappy. I mean, Nick Saban, I guess you call that part of the media, but Nick Saban went out and was like, "Why are there 2 Group of 5 teams in the playoffs?" That's just me.
You just took my point because that's exactly what I was going to say.
Do we count him?
Saban's
Do
not
we
Notre
count
Dame.
him as media, or is he still Coach Saban? Like, where do we count him? I still think he's more coach than me. Like, he happens to be a former coach with a microphone and a camera in his face. I don't consider him true media.
Sure.
Well, and to your guys' point, there's not a lot of schools that were on the fringe like that. So who else would be mad? It's not like, I don't know, like the Florida Gators fans are really upset.
I don't think Iowa State fans are up in arms at the fact that James Madison is in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. You know who really loses is kind of the college football fan in general, because those games were not fun to watch.
No, they weren't.
So
they were flat out awful is what they were. And
it sets up for such a wonderful week of football if you had these big games, these marquee games, and we all lost because of it. And I'm not talking about we as Notre Dame. I'm talking about college football fans.
People who like to watch college football. That's right. And to this point, look, we do this show every day, and it's been 2 weeks since Notre Dame was left out of the college football playoff. And in our YouTube show, we've got Notre Dame fans, we're a very targeted show. We've got a lot of Notre Dame fans chiming in. We see message boards, I would say a fraction, and I mean small fraction of Notre Dame fans who, again, we interact with every day, have had an axe to grind with either James Madison or Tulane. It's not them that Notre Dame fans are mad at. They're mad at the ACC. They're mad at the College Football Playoff Committee. They're mad at ESPN. I think that those are the 3 at the top of the list. Maybe if I'm leaving somebody out, you guys can remind me, but I don't think that any, I won't say any, but it's a very, very small fraction of Notre Dame fans who have any ire directed specifically at Tulane or James Madison. A loophole got James Madison in, the system got Tulane in. That's just the way it is. They're not mad specifically at them. They're much more mad at the whole system and the process of the selection, I think, than anything. And, for Fornelli to say this, what just cracks me up about this whole weekend is, again, it's been 2 weeks since Notre Dame was left out. And what kills me, now, again, there were a lot of Notre Dame fans obviously tweeting and, some Notre Dame media tweeting about what was going on. But Notre Dame was not in the playoffs this weekend, but Notre Dame was also one of the biggest stories of the weekend because there was so much conversation like this going on about Notre Dame. Like Fornelli calling out the media while he is also a member of the media, and essentially going back to what you talked about earlier on a different topic, Trevor, essentially just using Notre Dame to drive clicks and engagement farm to get people interacting with his tweet. That's really the bad faith that so much of this has covered. Guys like this just using Notre Dame to drive engagements, and drive some rage online and that kind of thing. That's what this really feels like, because I don't think the vast majority of Notre Dame fans ever had anything out for either Tulane or James Madison for being in the playoff.
No, I mean, the reason why Notre Dame's name was brought up consistently is because there's a lot of dollar signs attached to Notre Dame's name when it gets brought up on TV, written in articles. And let's just call a spade here, gentlemen. These past 4 playoff games were garbage. I mean, I don't care that Alabama came back from 17 down. That was a really sloppy, ugly game. The Miami-Texas A&M game had a whopping combined 13 points scored. Ugh. That was terrible. And I thought I was upset at Notre Dame's kickers' problems. And then you have the Ole Miss and Oregon games that just nobody – I mean, and ESPN knew they weren't going to get watched. They were aired on True TV. It's just the college football playoffs, so it is what it is, man. But I'm hoping with more marquee matchups, I guess you could say, in the quarterfinals, hopefully just the Notre Dame discussion can just be something of the past.
Well, it just seemed like even last year, the IU Notre Dame game felt magical around campus and living in South Bend. Like that meant something. This year it was almost like, yeah, let's just get to the next round and see what happens. And to your point about this whole topic, I went to Ball State. We had one good year where we were 12-0. If another team got in from a different conference, I would, as a Ball State person, I would have thought, crap, that sucks that they got in and we didn't. But I wouldn't have thought we should have two teams from lower conferences in the playoff.
Exactly. I didn't even ask you guys, how much college football playoffs versus NFL did you guys watch this weekend?
50-50 split. I traveled a lot this weekend, so I didn't get to watch a whole lot. But, I watched the Alabama-Oklahoma game. It was gross. Watched some of the Miami-Texas A&M game. That was grosser. So,
I'm like Trevor. I watched a little bit of the A&M and Miami game. Not much, though. And before halftime, I turned it off because it was already unwatchable to me. And then I didn't watch the other three games because didn't really care.
Well, the two games involving Group of Five. Okay. Ole Miss. Hey, let's go down and score the first two times we have the ball. Okay, that game's over.
Right.
Next. Turn the page. I watched a little bit of that. I watched the end of the Miami A&M game just because I flipped over, saw the score. It's like, well, close game, last 4 minutes or whatever. I'll stick here. Watch that. I watched just minimal Alabama and Oklahoma and watch none of the Oregon James Madison game.
Just hurts because they could have had so many matchups.
Yes. Bobby, appreciate you as always. Trevor, appreciate you as always. You guys have a great Christmas. Be safe if you're traveling out there, and we'll talk to you again soon. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. The Festivus show comes your way tomorrow. The airing of sports grievances. You won't want to miss it. We've got it right here.